Have coverage. Prescription drugs, they can set you back quite a few bucks, forcing some older Americans to make a tough choice. Pay the bills or pay for pills that could save your life. Medicare Part D is supposed to help, but a growing number of agencies and lawmakers say private interests are eating up a big portion of the pot. Our fact finder Steve Flamish explains.
Would you be able to afford that?
No, no way.
Grace Hamilton depends on 10 prescription drugs to live a healthy life. But as she and millions of senior citizens know, all those pills add up. Seniors with Medicare Part D pay 25% of the cost, up to $2,500. But at that point, they fall into a coverage gap in which they pay 100% out of pocket. If seniors don't have additional coverage, as Grace does, paying that bill is not always possible.
These patients show up at our pharmacist counters, and it's sticker shock.
Craig Burridge from the State Pharmacist Society says what's most frustrating about it is that many seniors are pushed prematurely into the gap. For example, here's a benefits report for a customer of Health First, one of the 65 or so Part D plans in New York. For the generic cholesterol drug Simvastatin, Health First reports it paid $45.89, but the pharmacist says he only received $16.86. Who got the difference? The middleman, the pharmacy benefit manager that processes the claim, in this case, Express Scripts. Here's the twist. According to Medicare, the plan can decide whether to base the calculation on what's paid to the pharmacist or what's paid to the PBM. In the case of that Simvastatin, it's a difference of $46 to $16. Therefore, by basing the calculation on what the PBM gets, the $46, the customer winds up in the coverage gap much sooner. The company calls this an unrepresentative snapshot, but it certainly adds up. In a press release 2 months ago, Express Scripts boasted of record cash flow and soaring stock prices for the fourth quarter of 2007. Yet, it's at the low end of the big three PBMs. Express Scripts' net income last year trailed Medco's $912 million and CVS Caremark's $2.6 billion. The CEOs of those companies are earning million-dollar salaries and bonuses, while some seniors are stuck choosing between the money and the medication they need to live.
They don't have $700, $800, $900 to dole out every month for the next 6 months.
So they stop taking the pills?
They stop taking or stop taking some.
At issue is why some providers do it that way and why it's allowed. We're taking those questions straight to the top. Steve Flemish, CBS 6 News.
And you'll see what Steve found out in part 2 of his report tomorrow night at 11. The state of New York offers a backup plan for senior citizens called EPIC, the Elderly Pharmaceutical Insurance Coverage Program. If you're 65 or older with a yearly income less than $35,000 or $50,000 for married couples, you are eligible for additional drug coverage. Ask your pharmacist for more information. Well, they call it pump jump.
Right around 53.
All right, thanks, Steve. It's the hidden truth about Medicare Part D. A few companies are racking in millions and millions of dollars, while some senior citizens are scrapping just to afford their medication. In many cases, they can't. Last night, CBS 6 fact finder Steve Flamish revealed the loophole in the federal regulation. Well, tonight, let's get you those facts first. Under Medicare Part D, seniors meet a deductible, then pay 25% of their prescription costs until the total reaches $2,500 for the year. At that point, they fall into the coverage gap, paying 100% out of pocket. Now, here's the problem. A loophole allows Part D plans to calculate that total based on what's paid to the pharmacist or what's paid to the middleman who processes that claim. By the way, that's the pharmacy benefit manager. By choosing the higher of the two, the plan pushes the senior much more quickly into that coverage gap. As Steve Flamish reports, it's happening more and more than you might think.
It's not something that the average person would ever know. That's the problem with this.
Michael Burgess says what you don't know can hurt you, especially if you're a Medicare Part D beneficiary. Burgess and his colleagues at the State Office for the Aging are tracking a loophole in the federal regulation. It allows certain Part D plans to calculate prescription costs in a way that pushes seniors toward the coverage gap more quickly.
Obviously, when there is that gap there, the insurance plan doesn't have to pay for the medicine. The senior's paying it out of their own pocket.
It's not a very transparent system either. When you order a prescription, the information travels from the pharmacist's computer to the pharmacy benefit manager that processes the claim, the so-called PBM. Over time, the customer learns what the plan paid to the PBM, and the pharmacy learns what it received from the PBM, but rarely does anyone learn how much the PBM kept for itself. We found one example in which the pharmacy benefit manager Express Scripts retained 63% of the prescription cost. A spokesman at the company's St. Louis headquarters declined to speak to us over the phone, and he answered only some of the questions submitted by email. He wouldn't answer the big one, though. He would not say how Express Scripts can justify keeping 63% of the cost.
The PBMs have emerged as, shall we say, the 800-pound gorilla here.
State Senator Jim Seward is sponsoring a bill that would require PBMs to show more transparency and to act in the best interests of their customers, not their bottom line. The bill passed unanimously in the Assembly last year, but it never left the Senate. How does anything pass unanimously in the Assembly but can't even get a majority in the Senate?
Well, I can't speak for the Assembly. It is unusual to have a bill pass the Assembly unanimously, no question about it.
Seward says it's possible some senators may have gotten cold feet after reading an analysis which showed that regulating the PBM industry could raise pharmaceutical costs by 10%. Who commissioned and provided the report? The PBM industry. Nevertheless, Seward says caution is key.
I don't want to do something in the name of helping consumers that in the end would hurt other consumers.
The bill is currently sitting in the Senate's Insurance Committee, but ultimately Part D is a federal program and requires federal intervention. Medicare has proposed changing the regulation to close the loophole, but that would not take effect until 2010 at the earliest, if at all. Until then, many seniors may be forced to choose between the money and the medication they need. Steve Flemish, CBS 6 News.
Well, as not to confuse you even more, the State Pharmacist Society is warning of another troubling trend. Once seniors do fall into that coverage gap, they're then required to continue buying the pills at the cost determined by the plan. In many cases, that's significantly higher than the cash price. The society claims PBMs threaten to drop pharmacies and customers for buying and selling drugs at the lower price, even if it's the only way the senior can afford that medication.
Well, the state police